Good morning. Welcome to Wednesdays with Willa. I am your host, Willa White, and this is my weekly podcast show that airs on Wednesday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern on my Facebook page, Willa White Medium. You can also find it on my YouTube channel as well as the Lilydale Assembly Facebook page. This is a show where we talk about spiritualism, mediumship, healing, faith, family, and more. And every week I usually feature a wonderful guest, and I'll introduce you to him in just a moment. And we talk about spiritual topics, and you can look back at the archive videos of the show on Willa White Medium and also on my YouTube channel. A lot of times you can type in the name of my guest or a particular topic of interest, and that'll pop up right away for you. And I hope that you enjoy watching those. Now, on with today's show, we have a wonderful field trip that we're doing here at the Lilydale Museum. And I always have a lot of fun visiting the Lilydale Museum and talking with our historian, Ron Nagy. Thanks for being on the show again, Ron.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Ron's been featured on the show many times because he is our resident expert of all things Lilydale history. And we are very grateful that he is our historian of this very special place. And he's the one that really helps keep things orderly and keep things the dates and facts straight. And you've written books about Lilydale history, and I know in our past shows, for those of you who are interested, we have done slate writing, we have done the spirit precipitated art paintings, we've featured various aspects of the museum, and will continue to do that so that more and more people can understand about the wealth of information that's here in the Lilydale Museum and the part that Lilydale played in history, not just for our county, but sometimes through the nation. So we'll do the best we can to share those things with you. You could look back if you're interested in slate writing. You can type in slate writing. If you're interested in the spirit art, you can do that, and it should pop up for you in your search. All right, so we want to feature today about the Lilydale train station. And we're going to talk a bit about this and show you beautiful photos from the past and really take you on a journey through history. So this is a special online virtual tour of the Lilydale Museum. So Ron, I know you have a lot you can tell us about Lilydale, what we know to be Lilydale today versus what people knew Lilydale before. Tell us a little bit about that.
Lilydale before, the only way you could really get here was by train, because all the roads were mud and they were way out of the way. It took 4 hours to get down from Dunkirk on a horse and buggy, and that was on a good day. So that was the best way to get here. If you traveled, you'd go up to Buffalo or to Dunkirk, and Dunkirk was the beginning of the line that came down here. Yes. And from here it went down to Jamestown and swung around, went all the way down to Titusville where it dead ended, where they could go around in a circle and come back up again.
Yes, and that was known as the Dunkirk, Allegheny Valley, and Pittsburgh Railroad Company. And one of the things that's so beautiful about Lilydale is that we are on what's known as an island. Tell them a little bit about Fern Island. I'm going to switch this around so they can see you, and you can explain to them what's so significant about Lilydale and Fern Island.
Fern Island there's 3 lakes that are on the one side of Lilydale.
Yes.
But if you go past Lilydale Beach and around, you'll see a creek or a stream that goes to a lake in the back, which is called either Mud Lake or Mirror Lake. Mm-hmm. And from there's a stream that goes all the way to near the end of Dale Drive. And there's a little bridge over there. Mm-hmm. And this was considered an island. Mm-hmm. Okay, it was called Fern Island, but it was nicknamed Lilydale. Mm-hmm. It was always the Lilydale area. And when people would come down the passenger train, even in 1871 when it started, they would yell to the conductor, Lilydale. And then the train would make sure they stopped and wouldn't bypass the Lilydale station.
So for those of you who have been to Lilydale before, you know that there's something known as Dale Drive. That did not exist. That was only a fishing trail, and there weren't all those homes along the road either. Correct, Ron?
Right.
Yes. And so all of the area that was known as Lilydale was actually including parts outside of the gates of Lilydale that we know today. And we're going to focus in on the importance of that space and how people got to Lilydale through the train, because we had so many people visiting Lilydale once it became more established. There had been meetings that had happened on the grounds of what is known as Lilydale today. But then they began officially in 1879 to have summer meetings and to really start what we know Lilydale today, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So we want to mention, I know you were just speaking about the railroad company, and that was the Dunkirk, Allegheny Valley, and Pittsburgh Railroad. And as you said, that covered a lot of territory. I just wanted to share with folks, when I was at the county fair this summer, I usually go with the kids, and they have a wonderful train. I'll show you a picture I took of things, and they do feature Lilydale, the train depot here. So one moment. And so you can see, this is the train that's at the Chautauqua County Fair, and it actually has the engine, has a little coal thing at the back. You can ring the bell. And then there's a middle car with all kinds of history in it. And then it has the caboose in the back, which is fun to climb on for the kids. They can climb up inside. But they have in the middle car, as I said, history. And they had a whole map of all the different train stations that the Dunkirk, Allegheny Valley, and Pittsburgh Railroad Company would stop at. And this is the photo that they feature next to the Lilydale. You can probably see it very small. That's kind of in the middle of that particular photo. But I just thought I'd share that with you so you have a sense of the vastness of that place. And I know that it was basically from Dunkirk, New York, right? And then it would go to Titusville, Pennsylvania, correct?
Yeah, it's a long drive. It's a long way.
And it's kind of fascinating that when you think about Lilydale and how people were able to get here, they built that first station. I know you had shown me the picture for 1871. We should take them over to the picture that's on the wall now. And that is, you can explain to them. Oh, no, it's the one here. Ron and I got together in advance and looked through these photos. So let's explain to them about this. This was the first station.
Sometimes they'd have 6 and 8 excursion. They call them excursion trains, and you'd get a discount because there were so many cars.
Yeah.
But 6 and 8 train loads, that's how you got so many people on the grounds here.
Yes.
But this was the first train station.
And so just to orient people, this was actually at the DEC boat launch of Cassadaga. And if you want to point, like this would be where
that's the Leland
Hotel would be across the lake there. And then this would be Dale Drive on the other side of the bridge. So there was a bridge that went to along this photo to the left. But you can see in that photo the railroad tracks, but also, why don't you go ahead and tell them about the Iroquois Hotel?
Iroquois Hotel.
That first generation of it.
First generation. Here is them building it.
This was, well, that's the second generation, I think.
Oh,
first generation.
They knocked these 2 buildings down here and
eventually
to build this in here.
Do we know, just out of curiosity, do we know what these other 2 buildings next to the Iroquois Hotel? Okay. So that was there and present at the site of the first train depot. And then Lilydale started in 1879 as the Cassadaga Lake Free Association, and it was a camp that was a meeting place for spiritualists. And now we've got to go take them to the wall. So we're going to go up onto the wall here in the Lilydale Museum, and we are supposed to be at the photo, the bottom here. That's where we need to be. All right, so let's tell them about that particular photo.
They're all waiting for the train. That is a colored picture. Eileen McNamara likes, it's her hobby to color the old photos, and she colored that in there. That the Iroquois has not been built there yet. It's a little too early. That's a nice picture there.
It is, and you can see the little horse and carriage, and people are probably going to load folks up and take them over to Lilydale or drop people off. And so that would have been what the area looked like. Again, this looks like here that would have been the lake, and would that have been the Leyland Hotel?
And here you can see part of the bridge here. And
back then, the Leyland Hotel was known as the Alden House, the Alden Farm, right? So that would have been across the way there.
Yeah. And Lilydale's over here.
Lilydale's over there. And now we go to, I'm going to refer to this, 1881. We need to go up here now. 1881. This is when a second generation, a new train depot was built on the right-hand side of the road. So they actually moved it from the boat launch area, and they made sure that it was up there. That's how you described it to me, right, Ron?
They took it apart and rebuilt it.
Yes.
And you can see it all the way over. That's the train.
That's the train.
And he probably built the station.
Mm-hmm. And so would this is where they were going to be building that, but this be that house that's at the end of Dale Drive in Frisbee.
That's still there.
That still is there. And how many passengers a day? I read in one source that they said that there were 100+ Lilydale passengers on that train a day during the
and there
summer
were 6 and 8 excursion trains, so that's a lot of people coming in.
Right.
And going out, and then if they didn't go out, they filled the place up. A lot of people would open up their houses for an extra room or two.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. And so then we go to what's known as the third generation of the train station. And that was done in 1893 is what we had that down for. 1893 and 1894. You can see the people in. I love the horse. And then this is a car. Look, guys, this is an old time car. The people are in. And there's another old time car. So then cars started to come in.
Yeah, you can see the train. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's at least 6 or 7, sometimes longer. Mm-hmm. That's why they built the exit so big so the people could wait. That hadn't been 150 feet.
So then in the old days they had this wooden bridge that was built that was pretty low. People couldn't go under it in their boats to get through the channel to the other lake. But you can see there were hordes of people that would get off that train and head to Lilydale, and this is the way to do it. And now we'll move them up to this one here. That we have that the train station. That's still that third generation of the train station, and you can see the side of the bridge a little better and
the walkway.
The walkway.
So you don't get your feet muddy. They advertise that in the program.
So if you can imagine and envision, instead of this train depot there, it's like a wooded area for the most part. And then I know you had mentioned that there was a baseball field there.
They played baseball there. That
and so
was
the
first
baseball
field.
was in through here, correct? Is what
imagine the balls in the canal.
Yeah, now it's all filled in with kind of a swampy marshland water area and a beaver lodge that a beaver's worked on to live there for a few
6
years
acres,
now.
we can't use half of it.
Yes. So that's just what it looks like then, and then now it's changed. So I think we can go to the new Iroquois Hotel. And the new Iroquois Hotel at that point They started, do you remember the year in this one? I didn't write that down.
It was just about before 1900.
Okay, around 1900 then. That this is the Iroquois Hotel, and you were explaining to me this is 3 levels.
It had 3 levels, and there was a divider in here where one half was for if you wanted takeout, sandwiches and stuff.
Okay.
And the other half was sit-down dining.
Got it.
Second floor was rooms to let, which were rentals. And the third floor was dancing all night. Imagine that on the third floor.
I'll tell you. And then you were telling me that the roof is called something. The particular
Mansard.
Mansard. That's a mansard roof that they built for the Iroquois Hotel. Here's another photo of it. And that's after it's been there a while, and you can really see, I love that little railroad crossing sign is right there. And I'm kind of curious about what that one would have been. What that building would be.
I never read anything.
You never read anything about that one. So that would be, and then just to give you a sense of even farther into history, because look, there's a tree there in this third photo of the Iroquois Hotel of that same shape. That's grown up.
Here's the little one.
Here's the little tree up here. I'll show you where Ron's pointing. There's the little tree, and here it is grown up. And then what I noticed is there had been foliage on this one, maybe some sort of growing ivy on the porch of the Iroquois Hotel, and then it looks much more developed and has spread to other posts on this one. So hope you guys can see that. Yeah, good. So that was the Iroquois Hotel, and I know that we're going to go show them up here on the wall again. We made a note. Yeah, this is the Iroquois Hotel. There's the year there we needed, 1899, and that's where the present boat launch is. Now I'm going to just take you over here to where they are loading ice onto a train car, and that is ice that was harvested on Cassadaga Lake, and then they would do the ice cutting, and then it says right there 16 train loads shipped. So that was them shipping ice at the Lilydale Depot. And now we can go to the next thing, which is 1920s. I'm going to take you over here to the 1920s. This was that photo I showed you before that is actually utilized at the Chautauqua County Fair train, where they're featuring the Dunkirk, Allegheny Valley, and Pittsburgh Railroad line that is no longer in effect. But this is such a beautiful photo of the girl that's standing there, and you can see the train depot there. So that's probably the most famous photo out there, if you're online, of the train station for the 1920s. So now we should tell them a few other things. I'm going to turn it over to you again here, because in 1937, Ron, the Dunkirk Allegheny, such a big mouthful, guys. I'm just gonna see the DAVNP Railroad. So Ron, tell them about the passenger train service being discontinued and what happened then.
The DAVNP was discontinued in 1937 because a lot of people stopped riding it because they had Route 60, which was in, and Dale Drive was actually a road at that time, and a lot of people would just hop in their cars and they would come down. So the railroad wasn't making any money, so then they just used it for
the freight train.
Freight trains.
Yeah, so those were the only ones that would come through, and they wouldn't need to necessarily stop at the Lilydale train station. Mm-hmm. And then as far as what happened to the Iroquois Hotel, eventually it had changed hands, changed names, everything like that. And then what happened in 1967?
Burnt down.
It burnt down. And so then, probably not long after that, they decided to go ahead and make that the boat launch. And because the bridge would have changed as well. Do you remember what year the bridge would have changed?
Oh, the bridge changed 5 times.
Yeah.
But when the bridge changed the last time, that was around probably 2012, 11,
yeah, the last
10,
time they fixed
something
it, yeah.
like that. That's when they put the boat launch in, and they put this bridge in, and it's supposed to last forever.
One can hope.
We'll see.
But it's a bridge that's high enough for boats to get under, so they can traverse between the two. And I know we didn't. I just have a thought in my head, but I guess we should finish up about this little part. No, I'm going to ask. So I had heard that there had been a ferry on the lake at one point, like a little boat that would pleasure cruise people around.
3.
There were 3. Can we talk briefly about that too?
They had one that was steam, one electric, and one that was something else. Well, first the electric one, they clean energy, right? But they didn't really trust the electric that much. So that is one of the oars. They would always have oars in the electric one in case it would break down. They could always get back into shore.
Oh, yeah.
And now the steam one, all the boats would have a stack for the steam and all to go out of, but then they couldn't get under the bridge. So what they were it was like a telescope, and they would push the stack all the way down low so they could get underneath the bridge. Then on the other side of the bridge, they'd push it back up again.
Ingenuity.
On their merry way.
That's right, human ingenuity. So that was another way that people could traverse the lakes and possibly stop off at Lilydale during that time.
They would dance here. They would go down to Cassadaga and get off, and then they would get carriages up to the downtown Cassadaga, and they would dance there, and then they could come back, and they'd hit the Iroquois Hotel and dance until morning.
Some people really love to party, and they keep in mind Lilydale is a dry community in the sense of that they couldn't do that within the gates. So that's another reason they would probably carouse. Different day and time. Like they didn't have Uber back then. They had to put their horse and carriage in order for these things. Kind of fun. Now, and then I know you told me in 1971, 72, something happened in nearby St. Clairville, New York. It's just a little ways down on the train route. What happened then?
There was Hurricane Agnes, and we got the tail end of it, and it rained, I don't know how many inches, but it flooded St. Clairville out, wiped all the railroad tracks out and all, and there was nowhere else to go, so they decided to take the tracks out, took the tracks out from here to Dunkirk, and they made a rails to trails hiking.
Right. So all those train tracks in that section and the various stops, depots were removed, including the ones at the Lilydale train depot. And now I know you have a couple other stories for us. Tell us about Marion Skidmore being another important person for Lilydale.
Marion Skidmore was taking the train through Ohio, and Abby Louise Pettingill was also on the train. And they met, they started talking, and Mrs. Skidmore started talking about Lilydale and spiritualism, and Abby Louise, she said, that sounds interesting, and she didn't go where she was supposed to go. She took the train here to Lilydale. She stayed with
Marion Skidmore.
After that, and the rest is history, because she was joined as a member, and the family that was very wealthy, and they put a lot of money into Lilydale at that time. They were really good people.
We needed them. And Marion Skidmore, just to talk about her briefly, she's definitely someone you would recognize if you went past the library. The library actually has Marion Skidmore on it. Marion Skidmore Library is right there. She believed in education, and originally the library was just a pavilion tent, and thankfully it turned into a beautiful brick building. But tell us real briefly a little bit about Marion Skidmore and what she brought to Lilydale.
Marion Skidmore, and in the same breath you could say Thomas Skidmore. They were husband and wife, and they were, like I said, they were wealthy also. Thomas Skidmore was a bridge builder, and he was bank president in Fredonia, and he was an administrator, really. So when they got together here, he was president, and then if he wasn't president, should be vice president, or ended up being treasurer. But they just made sure everything went right. But with all the money they had, they didn't spoil Lilydale.
Yeah.
They just threw in enough money so they could break even. And once in a while, they threw in a little bit of money, like the family, Abby Louise's family. They put the bowling alley in, and they donated that.
Yes, and the Leolin Hotel.
It helps.
And it helps when people... Abby Louise Pettengill was also the first woman president of Lilydale, and that would have been in the late 1800s still, which is just really wonderful.
You see, 1894, she bought the Leland Hotel in Woods, and she was on the board of directors, and then 3 of her family members were on the board of directors, and that's why in 1903 the board voted to change the name of the association, and they picked City of Light. And it's not because we had the first electric lights. It's because we threw enlightenment around the world. That's why the name was changed to the City of Light. In 1906, the San Francisco earthquake wiped out a good bit of the money of the Pettengill family. So they all got off the board, and they had to get their money situation back in order. Abby Louise remained a member of Lilydale, but she wasn't on the administrative staff anymore. So the assembly voted to make this Lilydale Assembly.
They changed the name to Lilydale Assembly.
Because the train station was called Lilydale. The post office was called Lilydale. Everybody would say they're going to Lilydale, and now before people would say they were going to the City of Light, and some kept on calling us Casadega or Casadega Lake Free Association, but there was another Casadega in Florida which we helped start, and it was mixing a lot of people up, so they changed it to Lilydale Assembly Incorporated, which we remain today.
Beautiful. And Marion Skidmore not only was able to make that wonderful connection with Abby Louise Pettengill, but also Susan B. Anthony and other great people that came to Lilydale and were influential in spiritualism, but in other areas as well.
I got a good tidbit this week from one of our women's suffrage people. They said I forget which word it was, but they said we were the 3rd largest for lack of a better word, area for an organization for women's suffrage in the country.
Whoosh. Did you guys take that in? Say that again for everyone.
We were the third largest organization in the United States for women's suffrage.
Whew, that's pretty cool. That is really cool.
Chautauqua County and Lilydale.
Yes, wonderful. And so there's a lot that can happen with trains, including something important that was built in 1883. Can you tell us about what the train brought in to have built in 1883?
Somehow the auditorium was built in 1883, but what really gets me is the first time I was sitting in there, you're bored, and then you start looking up at the ceiling, and I'm looking up at the ceiling, and I see 80-foot steel beams. And I'm looking at them, and I see Phoenix Steel Corporation Company on the side of one of the beams. Well, Phoenix Steel was all the way back outside of Philadelphia, where I came from, and I also worked. And that steel mill that made those 24-inch beams, and I still wonder where they came from, if they put them in new, if they came in used from Buffalo. But to get them down here, I figured they had to put them across two cars. And if they went around a curve, they had to take it real easy.
Must be.
But I thought that was really, and you can still see that name on one of the beams up there.
Yeah. Yeah, if you've ever been into the auditorium building, it's a big building. It's a mainly wooden structure, but it has these humongous steel beams that are part of the ceiling, and there are also some metal posts, I don't know if that's the right term for it, that help with the structure as well. And it is fascinating to think about how they would have, shipped the materials so that we could build some of the things here in Lilydale. So if anybody's curious about the Lilydale Auditorium building, I did a wonderful virtual tour on a past Wednesdays with Willa show where Ray Taft was our tour guide, and we went into the auditorium building. So you can, at different points, I do kind of scan the ceiling so you can see those beams for yourself and also learn more about the auditorium history. Now, I do want us to talk a little bit about today. Let's remind people of what they see today instead of that train depot.
Instead of that train depot, you see a forest of pine trees. We were in there, and we found when they took the train station down, they didn't waste anything. They took every stone that put that building up. You could still see the indentation in the ground. Mm-hmm. We had metal detectors and everything. We found some railroad spikes, but the whole thing's gone. And there's like 2 foot or more wide trees all over the place, whether they're just wild or whether they were planted or whatever.
Not quite sure.
But the lake rose, and that's where we lost 2.5 acres of ground. Here's a picture here. Looking from the other way, it's probably the baseball field here. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the Finney's Iroquois Hotel. And there's a bridge. And it looks like it has the little hump in it, where the boats can get under.
So, yeah, as we said before, the Iroquois Hotel is not there. That's the DEC boat launch. And that wooded area still belongs to Lilydale. Oh, he's got another photo for us, guys.
Here's a picture here of a young couple underneath the bridge.
What? Oh, they're standing underneath the bridge. Oh, so that would have been the...
It's underneath the bridge, and there's a stone.
Oh, they're in a boat.
Sitting on a boat, but that's one of the stone pillars there, and there's there, and then you have your Iroquois Hotel over here.
Do we know what year that photo?
About 1910 or 12, and there.
What's that?
Is those.
Oh, Yes.
That was a popular
The pin that is on the
Pin.
green paper backing in that, with the covering of plastic that says Spiritualist Badge. It's a diamond-shaped pin with scalloped edging, and it has a sun with those things. Can you guys see that? I hope you guys can see that. So that is the pin that young lady had. Of course, I'm thinking they took an old-time photo on the
That was
boat,
an old-time one. That was a real
Took
one.
that.
These are contemporary that were made
ones.
up.
Yes, in honor of those things. So how do people get to Lilydale today, Ron?
Airplane. Airplane.
It doesn't deliver
bus,
you to the doorstep of Lilydale,
Uber.
though.
Yeah, they get here all different ways, but a lot of them is car.
Yeah, they
Eventually
arrive by car.
car, either rental or Uber or whatever. We don't have any bus that stops out front, only for the school kids and the...
Right, the school buses, but not transportation, public transportation buses. So if you're coming to Lilydale, just know you're going to need a car, rent a car, or find a ride. So that's how people come to Lilydale. Well, this has been great, Ron. I really appreciate you taking us through history a bit in terms of the train station at Lilydale. I think it's really wonderful that we still have these old photos, that the history is being maintained by you here. Tell people how they can visit the Lilydale Museum. I know that you have a Facebook page, but also during the off season, you're open some weekends.
Off season, this time of year, if it's a nice weekend, I'll be open here on Saturday. If you want to double check that, you can give me a call or send me an email, and I'll be here at a certain time, usually 11 to 2 or 3, something like that. Then bad weather or later October, November, December, any other month, just send an email and call and see if you could get in, and we'll take a look around.
That's right, because some people do come for research of books and other things that they're working on, and Ron does his best to work with all of you that make your inquiries. You can find out more about Ron on his website, which is ronnagy.net, I believe. And he does have books that he's written about Lilydale history, so take a good look at those. And then, of course, if you're coming in the summer season, come visit Ron and get to talk with him yourself and ask questions and really learn more about the Lilydale history. And I would encourage, if you'd like to support Lilydale history, a good way to do that is to make a donation. Make a donation to the Lilydale Assembly and have it earmarked for the Lilydale Museum, because this building does need to be maintained, and it's through the generosity of all of you that is made possible. We also want to do our best to protect the materials and other photos and artifacts that are in this museum. So please consider that as you go forward in your own lives, that there's a lot of beautiful history here that needs to be maintained, and we need your help to do that. So thank you for being on the show today, Ron. It's really wonderful to learn from you and be with you. All right, everyone, I'll see you next week. Next week, I will have Dot McCarthy on my show, who I refer to as the fairy godmother of Lilydale, and we're going to talk about acts of grace. All right, everyone, have a beautiful week. Bye-bye.